She kept waving her phone at me and shouted, "This whole place is booked for my party. Get off the driveway." I was still holding my chainsaw because I had been trimming a fallen pine tree, so I froze for a second, thinking maybe I'd heard her wrong. But then I saw the 3 yellow buses lined up along the gravel road, their engines still rumbling, and through the windows I could see people standing, holding coolers and balloons, like they were about to crash a festival. One of the drivers leaned out and asked, "Where do we unload, ma'am?" Like it was already decided that my meadow was their dance floor. I stepped forward, trying to keep my voice calm. "This is private property. You need to turn those buses around." Karen got off the first bus wearing a wide straw hat, sunglasses bigger than her face, and that smirk that made it look like she was about to win something. She said loud enough for everyone to hear, "You don't own this valley. Our HOA reserved it for a fundraiser. You should be grateful we picked your boring land." I laughed under my breath because my family has owned that land for 4 generations, with the deed framed right above the fireplace in the cabin. But before I could answer, the doors of all 3 buses opened at once, and people started stepping down, carrying speakers, folding tables, even a giant inflatable arch that said, "Welcome Summer." I moved closer to Karen and lowered my voice. "You're trespassing. If you don't leave now, I'll have to call the sheriff." She tilted her sunglasses down and whispered back, "Go ahead. I already called them. They're coming to tell you to leave." For a moment, I felt my chest tighten. Then I remembered something she didn't know. The sheriff she was talking about was my cousin, and he'd been here last weekend for a barbecue. I stayed quiet, though, because sometimes silence is the best way to watch someone dig their own hole. Just then, one of the buses tried to drive further down the slope toward my pasture, and the tires spun, kicking up dust and stones. A couple of my cows backed away, snorting nervously, which was enough to make my patience slip. I stepped in front of the bus, raised my hand, and said, "Not another foot. This is your last warning." Karen's smile vanished. She pulled out a folded paper from her purse and slapped it against my chest. "This is an official HOA event. You're obstructing community development. If you don't cooperate, we'll file a complaint for harassment." The paper was nothing but a printed flyer with the HOA logo she probably downloaded off the internet. I felt a rush of heat in my ears, but I still didn't raise my voice. Instead, I said, "You might want to keep that paper." She rolled her eyes and walked back to the crowd, waving her arms like a queen commanding her people. That's when I knew she had no idea what was about to happen next. Before I could pull out my phone, I heard the low growl of an engine coming up the gravel road. Karen spun around, grinning like she just won a jackpot. "See, that's them," she announced to the crowd. A white SUV with flashing amber lights came up the curve and stopped in front of my cabin. For a second, it looked official, until I noticed the magnetic decal on the door was peeling at the edges. A tall man stepped out wearing a polo shirt that said "Community Enforcement," but the badge on his belt was clearly plastic. He didn't even look at me. He marched straight up and barked, "Sir, we've had reports you're interfering with a permitted event. I need you to clear the entrance immediately." I crossed my arms and stayed put. "And you are?" He puffed up his chest. "Officer Grant, HOA Security." Karen stood behind him like a shadowy puppet master, smiling as if she'd unleashed the law itself. "He's here to remove you," she added. I almost laughed, but I held it in. "You're trespassing on private property, and unless that badge comes with a court order or a real sheriff's star, you're not giving me orders." Grant's jaw tightened. He said, "I can call backup." He glanced toward the buses. That's when I saw 2 more men in the same polo shirts step out from the crowd. They were carrying radios clipped to their belts, trying hard to look official, but failing under the sunlight. Karen raised her phone again and started recording. "You're refusing a lawful directive. This video's going straight to the county board," she said. I didn't move. I just stared at her camera and said calmly, "You're going to regret posting that." At that exact moment, my cousin Jake's patrol truck appeared around the bend. The real sheriff's logo gleamed on the door as the blue and red lights flickered in the sunlight. The fake security guards froze like deer in headlights. Karen's smile faltered for the first time. "Oh, good, the sheriff's here," she said, forcing a cheerful laugh. Jake stepped out, took one look at the scene, 3 buses, folding tables, a crowd setting up banners on my land, and then looked at me. "You want to tell me why there's a festival on your pasture?" I didn't have to answer because Karen jumped in. "Officer, we have permission. This land was reserved by the HOA for our fundraiser. He's blocking us." Jake arched an eyebrow. "Funny, I don't remember signing a permit for a fundraiser on private ranch property." The silence that followed was heavy. Karen opened her mouth, but no words came out. The crowd behind her shifted uneasily, whispering. That's when one of the fake security guys tried to slip back toward the SUV. Jake noticed. "Hold up," he called, walking toward him. "Mind showing me that badge you're carrying?" The man hesitated, then muttered, "We're just here to keep the peace." Jake took the badge, turned it over in his hand, and let out a short laugh. "This is from a Halloween costume set." He held it up for everyone to see. Karen's face went pale. She reached out to snatch the badge back, but Jake stepped away. "Ma'am, I think we need to talk about what's really going on here." The crowd started backing away from the tables as if the party had already ended. I didn't say a word. I just waited, knowing the real storm hadn't even started yet. Karen's voice shot up an octave as she tried to recover. "That badge doesn't matter. We have every right to be here. This whole valley belongs to the HOA district." Her words echoed against the cabin walls, but even the birds had gone quiet. Jake's expression hardened. "Ma'am, this valley isn't in your HOA jurisdiction. It's registered under the Wallace Ranch Trust. That's his family's land." He pointed his thumb at me. "You're trespassing." She blinked fast, like she couldn't process it. "No, that can't be right. The board told me we had it for the summer." I finally spoke up, keeping my tone even. "We've owned this valley for over 100 years. I can show you the deed in 5 minutes. It's framed above the fireplace." The crowd behind her started murmuring. A few people quietly rolled up the banners and folded their chairs. One guy whispered, "I told you this felt weird." She spun on them. "Don't you dare pack up! He's bluffing! The county owes us this land after the easement deal." Jake cut her off. "That deal was for road maintenance, not for parties. You're digging yourself deeper." She turned back to me, her face red and tight. "You're doing this on purpose. You just want to ruin everything I've worked for. You think because you're some local cowboy you can push us around?" I shook my head. "No, Karen. You just never asked permission." Her phone buzzed in her hand. She looked down at it, and for a second, her confident mask cracked. I caught a glimpse of a text message flashing across her screen, something about the permits being fake and stop before the county finds out. She quickly locked the phone, but I saw enough to know she wasn't just bluffing. She was hiding something bigger. Jake noticed her sudden panic too. "Ma'am, is there something you're not telling us?" Karen stepped back, clutching her purse like it held her last hope. "I don't have to explain anything. My lawyer will handle this," she snapped, then pointed at the buses. "Everyone stay put. We're not leaving until we get our refund from the board." The drivers looked at each other, then one climbed back into his bus and started the engine as if to leave anyway. The sound of the engine roared in the tense silence, and Karen's head whipped around. "Turn that off! We're staying!" Jake sighed and pulled out his radio. "Dispatch, I'm gonna need an extra unit out here. Possible unlawful assembly and trespassing." That was the first time I saw Karen's confidence truly collapse. Her eyes darted from the buses to the sheriff's truck to me, and I swear she started calculating her escape route. I leaned against the fence post and said, just loud enough for her to hear, "If I were you, I'd start telling the truth now, because it's about to get a whole lot worse."
Her lips trembled before she forced a bitter smile. "You don't know who you're dealing with," she said, softly, almost like a warning. But I did know, and I had a feeling that whatever she was hiding was about to drag her into more trouble than either of us expected.
Karen's warning didn't shake me, but the way her voice cracked at the end told me she was running out of moves. The second patrol car arrived minutes later, dust cloud trailing behind it. 2 deputies stepped out, their eyes scanning the scene, the buses, the scattered tables, the restless crowd, Karen clutching her purse like a lifeline. Jake waved them over. "Got ourselves an uninvited HOA party. Need a hand sorting things out." Karen raised her chin, trying to regain control. "This is harassment. I'll sue all of you," she barked. One of the deputies asked her for the event permit. She hesitated, then slowly pulled a folded document from her purse. I watched her hands tremble as the deputy unfolded it. He frowned, then looked at Jake. "This isn't a permit. It's a printout of a park reservation request for a public lot 20 miles from here." Karen's face drained of color. "That's a clerical error. The board messed up, not me." Jake's voice was calm but stern. "Ma'am, you organized this gathering, brought 3 busloads of people onto private property without consent, and used fake security. That's trespassing, an unlawful assembly. If you made or used forged paperwork, that's another charge." The crowd began to disperse as reality sunk in. Some muttered complaints about being dragged into this mess. Others quietly carried their coolers back to the buses. A woman shook her head and said, "Karen, you told us everything was legal." She snapped, "Don't blame me. I was promised access by the board." Jake glanced at me. "You want to press charges?" I nodded. "I do. She's been warned before, but this went too far." Karen spun toward me, eyes blazing. "You wouldn't dare. You think you can humiliate me in front of everyone?" I didn't answer, just folded my arms and let her see the answer in my silence. The deputies moved in, one of them gently but firmly taking Karen's arm. "Ma'am, we'll need you to come with us. We'll sort everything out at the station." She tried to yank her arm free. "This is my community. I was doing this for charity." Jake's voice was steady. "Charity doesn't involve trespassing or forged permits. Let's go." Karen's last attempt was a desperate shout to the crowd. "You'll all regret this when the board hears about it." But no one responded. The party was over. As the deputies led her to the patrol car, the buses slowly turned around and rumbled back down the gravel road. The meadow was left scattered with a few folding chairs and an abandoned banner that flapped limply in the wind. Jake stood beside me, watching them leave. "She's going to have a long night," he muttered. I nodded. She had this coming for a while. Maybe now she'll finally learn boundaries. Jake gave me a faint grin. "You Wallace folks always get the last word." I walked back to the cabin porch, looking at the empty field that only an hour ago had been full of strangers. I felt a strange mix of relief and frustration. Then I glanced at the framed deed hanging above the fireplace, the one my grandfather signed decades ago, and thought about how close we'd come to losing control of our land. Later that evening, Jake called to tell me the charges would include trespassing, impersonating security personnel, and filing false documents. Karen was already calling her lawyer, but it wouldn't change the evidence. I stepped outside into the quiet night air, the valley peaceful again under the stars. I whispered to myself, I didn't fight for this land just to watch someone take it with a piece of paper. For the first time in weeks, I felt like justice had finally caught up with her. And maybe, just maybe, the valley could rest easy again.